Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So one of the more ridiculous little stunts that Immaru has pulled is one that I didn't get to cover earlier in the season. Whilst in the latest story developments he's becoming our collateral, it's clear that prior to this point, he felt very comfortable with his position. We couldn't harm him, lest we should lose our chance to resurrect Savathun, and therefore save everyone because she was the one who apparently had the knowledge required to pass through the portal. However, we still held all the power, it's just we couldn't exercise it. Functionally, it made us a bit pointless and it made him rather untouchable. Immaru currently laments his place as our captive, but before this, he was practically gloating in both an overt and a tacit manner at his, well, relative freedom. The most notable of these moments, in my opinion, isn't something that's shown off where he gloats to Ares or Ikora. It's one of the more tacit moments where he actually pretends to be a Vanguard-aligned ghost and floats all the way up to Lord Shaxx, and basically has a one-on-one conversation about the nature of the Crucible and how it may be a little bit like Sword Logic and like the practices of the Hive. This is actually the bigger topic of today's video, because whilst it is a wonderful chance to go over Immaru and all his schmarmy acts, it is also a chance to talk about how the way that Guardians practice warfare and the things that go on in the Crucible are notably different from Sword Logic and what the Hive Guardians are doing. But first, a word from our long-running sponsor and friend of the channel, Keeps. About 95% of the people watching this video right now, according to my analytics, are men between the ages of 18 and 35. That means most of you will be at risk of losing your hair. Happens to about 2/3 of you by the time you reach the age of 35. But it doesn't have to be that way thanks to Keeps. But why use Keeps? Well, for starters, it's really convenient. You can get your product delivered straight to your door, and that saves time and is discreet with non-branded packaging. Every Keeps plan is also personalized for you by a licensed medical advisor, so you can get the exact treatment you need without any of the fuss. You can also message the Keeps care team anytime via their secure messaging portal if you have questions as a part of your plan. Keeps is clinically proven to work as well. Their treatment is FDA approved, and clinical studies show that Keeps treatments are 90% effective at treating hair loss and can increase hair growth by up to 35%. Best of all though, it is trusted. With over 4,500 5-star reviews, Keeps has helped nearly 1 million men keep their hair. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/bife or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/bife. Thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to the lore. So, our story really begins with a stunt that Immaru pulled to get closer to Lord Shaxx. I say to get closer to Lord Shaxx, realistically this is just about him doing a little bit of wrecking and infiltration within the Last City. This involved one of his more direct forms of infiltration, and that is actually swapping his shell out. This is something that we know ghosts can do from our own experience, but we've never actually seen a major ghost character do it, because most of the time there isn't a real reason to. But here, it's clear that there is. But let's also be really clear about something. In some ways, this is akin to a human putting on a fake moustache and talking in a really badly rehearsed accent. This only works if Immaru can hide himself completely. And luckily for him, his disguise, and I kid you not, is one of those single sunglass lens ghost shells that covers up his core appropriately that he has swapped out for some of his Hive cracked chitin shell. And yeah, he's walking around in one of the summer event shells that's all silly and whimsical, and oh man, to think that that's gonna be the thing that might sink the tower. You know? This is terrifying. Imagine if other Hive ghosts did this normally. It would be the silliest and yet also most ridiculous way to actually get past all the security. We can find the record of this in the Rites of Passage lore book, in the A Big Fan lore entry, and it reads as follows. Immaru floated at the edge of the large crowd, waiting for an opportune moment. He tried to remain inconspicuous. The Hive Ghost had snuck out of the tower, leaving his bone-ridged shell behind to avoid unwanted attention. He filched an old shaded shell from an office junk drawer. The sunglasses made it perfect for sneaking around under cover. Given the gaudy shells these preening tower ghosts wore, Immaru was sure his new appearance would go unnoticed. He wandered around the lost city for a while, watching the citizens putter from one inane task to the next. Since resurrecting Savathûn, Immaru had been witness to the creation of a throne world, cosmic-level spellcraft, and interplanetary invasions. Being pent up with the humans, watching them haggle over the price of charred carrion skewers, was maddening. He was nearly bored enough to return to the tower when a stream of rowdy celebrants piqued his interest. They poured into the streets from houses, bars, and betting parlors, all making their way toward the edge of the city. Immaru floated among them. The crowd eventually arrived at the perimeter of an abandoned military base. Well-to-do patrons filtered past red jacks into the base, while most of the crowd gathered around enormous screens set up outside. The screens displayed the opening salvos of a crucible match, and Immaru could detect changes in the air pressure as the Guardians bombarded each other within the facility. After the match's brutal conclusion, the crowd dispersed. A few diehard fans waited around the gate to congratulate the participants. Eventually, the Crucible's boisterous announcer emerged to receive his fans' well wishes. Once the crowd had thinned, Immaru floated up to the one-horned Guardian. "I love what you're doing here, big guy." Immaru effused. "I got friends who would be very into your whole kill or be killed vibe." Immaru could sense Lord Shaxx blinking beneath his helmet, trying to place the ghost's voice. "Well met. Perhaps your friends will join us on the field." "Oh, you've met some of them already," Immaru chuckled. "You got a lot in common, actually." Immaru raised his voice in imitation of the Titan's booming commentary. "Only the strong survive. Make pain your ally. Dying is an essential element." That's right in their wheelhouse. You might even call it a philosophy. "Well, the Crucible is more than just senseless violence," Shaxx patiently explained. "It's about honor and fair play. It's about bringing the best out in one another and rising above our limitations." "I totally understand," Immaru said, chuckling inwardly at the Titan's canned rhetoric. "The goal is to be the sharpest we can be, and anyone who can't handle the edge gets cut. There's a certain logic to it." "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself," Shaxx said as his gleaming sparrow materialized beside him. "But remember, the Crucible is about more than just combat, more than just Guardians. It's about putting our differences aside and uniting everyone in the city, including the ghosts." He seemed to wink. "I'm a big fan," Immaru gushed. "Thank you for uniting so many different types of people. More than I could have imagined." "Many thanks for your support," Shaxx hollered as he revved the engines on his Sparrow. "I hope to see you and your friends again soon. Until next time." The massive Guardian gave his admirer a brief salute and sped off into the city. Immaru watched the Titan recede into the distance. "Whatever tickles your trigger finger, buddy," he muttered. The Hive Ghost floated off toward the tower, renewed in his purpose. At least now he knew what the Witch Queen saw in the humans. Maybe they would come around after all. So, Shaxx's pause for recognition and his implied wink seemed to make it really clear that he knew this was Immaru, but that doesn't change the fact that Immaru was basically able to go on a walking tour of the lost city, deep behind our own lines, basically unsupervised. It's things like this that remind me of why Owl Sector's transmission incident is so terrifying. The city being a bastion is one thing, but some of the invaders that we're facing up against have open-air forces, and well, we saw what happened in the Red War. It's even more crazy when you think about the fact that a ghost could literally just float over the walls, meaning that at any point in time, if a Hive Ghost wanted to, realistically, there is nothing stopping them from swapping out a ghost shell and just scouting the lost city for themselves. This is, probably a troubling security breach that we need to think about as Guardians, but that's not the point of this video. The bigger point of all this that we need to pivot to is nothing to do with Immaru's deception and his ideas about Shaxx. It's the bigger question of whether we are empowering or following the sword logic by fighting the way that we do and becoming continually stronger. This is the thing that Immaru seems to imply, or to at least want to hint to. And I don't really have a concrete answer, but I do have an interpretation that's founded in some lore. I should remind you all that everything I'm talking about is highly theoretical, so my answer is really nothing more than conjecture. But regardless, I think that it matters, because it's something which gives us a clear indication as to why certain things in Destiny's universe concerning the Hive happen. I think Shaxx gives us the answer to this question in the actual lore tab that we just read. If we are going to discern whether Guardians are contributing to the sword logic through activities such as the Crucible, I think we need to look at intention as well as action. Take a listen to what Shaxx said when he talked about the Crucible. He said, "But remember, the Crucible is about more than just combat, more than just Guardians. It's about putting our differences aside and uniting everyone in the city, including the ghosts." This, I think, makes all the difference when it comes to the logic of the sword, and perhaps more generally with Hive magic. I think it's because, again, this is not the same as the intentions behind the sword logic. This is a clear demonstration of Shaxx and probably the other Guardians' belief in what the Crucible is. But I think that there is actually an actionable example from the Season of the Witch that shows the parallel that we have in Hive Guardians, and it comes from the Hexed Shell. I've already read it a whole bunch, and we've talked about it previously this season when describing what the sword logic is to the Hive and what the final shape is to the Hive versus what it is to the Witness. But I am going to read this lore entry at least for one line of it, because it is very important. The lore entry features a Hive Guardian pair, one knight and one wizard. Both of them are continually going at each other, killing each other furiously. They are fighting to the death with zealous fury, but they do not kill each other's ghosts. The conflict goes back and forth over and over and over again, but every time they kill their compatriot, these words are said. "Existence is worthiness. That which cannot defend itself must die. This is the one true shape. Ayat." These words end in Ayat, which implies that this is not just a belief but an idea that the Hive see as self-evident and proven fact. This is going out on a limb, but I think Hive Guardians doing this after every kill isn't just a statement of some belief and faith. This isn't their shibboleth. I think this is an invocation of what they perceive to be a measurable truth. They know that when they kill each other, they are empowering themselves. They are making themselves stronger by killing their opponents. And that is where the difference lies. When we do this in the Crucible, we are not doing it with the intention of making ourselves more powerful. We are doing it with the intention that Shaxx outlined. The Hive are saying that you must die if you can't defend yourself, and that is how you prove that you're worthy or unworthy. Shaxx, on the other hand, says that this is a venue of honor. It's about honor and fair play and bringing out the best in one another. In my mind, this is the important difference. This is the difference of intention. Because Guardians fight to bring out the best in one another and to bring unity. They have a set notion of different rules and fairness, and the spirit of competition is all about. And it's worth remembering the Crucible was created and formalized by Lord Shaxx in the Last City as an act of creating a rising tide that would raise all boats. It was made to train the next generation of Guardians. For the Hive, on the other hand, a similar one-on-one combat test is conducted for the intention of growing one's own personal power with the imperative need to survive. Fundamentally, each Hive fights for their own survival above all else. Contrast this with the Guardians from the city, who are fighting sometimes for themselves, but also sometimes for their compatriots, for the people of the Lost City, and for the allies that we've earned throughout the Sol system. Our struggle and cooperation is all about a greater whole. Their struggle is all about survival and victory at all cost. That intention is the important bit. That's at least what I believe, and that's what Lord Shaxx seems to point out very eagerly to Immaru. Now, I'd emphasize again, all of that is conjecture on my part, But I believe that this defines the difference, and also, I feel as though there are other examples that you can point to within the universe of Destiny. For example, Eris Morn at the end of the season. She claims this immense amount of hive power, and she uses it in a way that does not expand her own domain of the sword logic. Thus, she was able to banish Xivu Arath, but she immediately forfeited all that power. This is something that speaks to the role of intention and its power within hive magic and hive rituals. It may also be the thing that links in with the hive as far as sword logic is concerned. But this does also leave us with one last really disturbing possibility. If a guardian from the Last City dedicated themselves fully to the path of the sword logic, would that shift in intention be all it takes for them to embrace it? Eris Morn would seemingly stand as an example of hive magics being harnessed by more than merely a hive, so it's not necessarily something that's limited based on your species or the pact with the worm. If someone like, say, Toland the Shattered was able to prove their aptitude in combat and that they were worthy within the perspective of sword logic itself, and if their intent was in honoring the final shape, as the Hive have seen it, was in gathering power as the sword logic dictates, would they be able to use the rituals that the Hive have conducted? Would they also be able to gain power in a similar manner? Who knows? Maybe in time we'll see a more direct example of what this might lead to, but for the moment, my best guess is that intention is the core of everything to do with why we don't necessarily build sword logic power and why the Hive do. We become stronger through our own means, but we are not necessarily applying those same lessons that the sword logic teaches. Again, let me know what you think down below in the comments. It's something that is an ongoing debate in Destiny's community, but I thought it was worth bringing up because it is actually the big point that Immaru makes in the context of this story. And, you know, it is also kind of funny to watch the little guy run around wearing what is effectively the equivalent of just a really, really bad disguise. Anyway, that's the video for today. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and let me know by leaving a like. And again, I already asked for what you guys would potentially leave in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I know I've given you my conjecture on the topic, but I think that it's relatively solid. It may be that I'm missing something crucial though. Lord knows that I am not someone who is infallible. So yeah, go ahead and let me know. If you want more Destiny content and more Destiny lore, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Perodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.